Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees for the University of Maine system. And first, I want to read a little bit of language here. We do have a couple of trustees who will be participating via Zoom or technology. Are they on Zoom, Alan, or are they going to? They're on the phone. Okay, they'll be on the phone. So trustees participating by technology will be counted towards a quorum. And to confirm that the trustees' attendance and to ensure that the trustees are able to hear clearly and understand the proceedings of each other, I'll ask the clerk who will take the roll call for those trustees. You may have to move the mic down.
Trustee King. Trustee King.
Yes, I'm here.
Trustee Cates.
Here. I said I was here. I hope you heard me.
Maybe we should go to Zoom.
We can't in this
I
room.
know.
I would just keep going. We'll check on.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back and check that.
I heard you, Roger.
And so we'll hold on the roll call for the rest of the trustees. Do you need a call? No. Okay, just them. This meeting is being streamed by YouTube, on YouTube. And so the Board of Trustees meeting will be live streamed and with closed caption available. So to assist the captionists, please use your mic and speak clearly into it to ensure that everybody is heard. So we still want to hold on that?
Trustee King, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Trustee Cates, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
I can hear you, Roger.
All right, while they're fixing that technology, let me just mention that both Trustee Cates and Trustee Kane are recovering from COVID. And so that's why they're not here in person. And luckily they're doing very well and recovering, but we'll hopefully have them online here shortly. I'd also like to thank, this is our second in-person meeting, and want to thank Dr. Cummings, President Cummings, for hosting us here at USM. And it's nice to get back out to the campuses. And in fact, today we'll have in our agenda some more engagement with faculty and students, which is one of the things that was lacking when we were on Zoom for almost 2.5 years. So it's great to be back in person. Want to remind everyone that you certainly are welcome to wear a face mask. Please do. We're not trying to discourage that at all. But in this room, as long as we stay at 75 or less, we will be able to be mask free. And then lastly, I'd like to acknowledge that we do have some new trustees, both Trustee Erlin and Trustee Erlin and myself will be, this is our last meeting. So in a way, we're retiring after this meeting. But we do have some new trustees, and I believe they're here. I have not met them yet, but oh, okay. Is Pat Flood right here? And also future trustee Barbara Alexander. Okay. Can we proceed, or do we need to wait for the roll call?
No, we can go.
We can go. Okay.
They're still working on it.
So our tab number 1 is to pick up where we started and had some very good exchanges with our faculty and students rep at the last meeting. And our tab 1 is to engage with the faculty and students reps at this board meeting, and to facilitate that and lead us through that work will be Associate Vice Chancellor Carolyn Dorsey. And Carolyn, I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, behind me. Yeah.
come around a little bit so I can see everyone. I'm pleased to be here today to continue the discussions that we started at the March board meeting with the student and faculty representatives to the board. We talked about several issues at that meeting over those 2 days that related to student success, what the students were, what was happening with the students over the past few years, the difference in what they may be facing and what they may need for services through COVID, and with the fact that we were doing a lot of things remotely or through technology. And then also how we as a system could be more engaged and help the campuses in their efforts with supporting students through their educational journey. So we had great discussion. And from that, we created the agenda for the topics that you'll be hearing about today. There are 3 topics. The first is EAB Navigate. Then we're going to talk about some mental health issues or services, and then follow up with DEI. So what I'm going to do is turn the podium over to Rosa Radonna. She is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Success and Credential Attainment, and she will introduce our first speaker.
Okay. So Heather, will this work from here?
Yep, it should. You might need to turn it on. You see the little switch on the side?
Oh, it has a little red light now. That's so exciting. All right. All right. EAB, formerly Education Advisory Board, provides technology and techniques designed to maximize student success and completion. From the beginning of the foundation tool, which provides predictive analytics associated with student success and risk within key course and major milestones, to the Navigate suite, currently implemented at all of our campuses, our work with EAB enables campus teams to identify patterns of student success and failure, plan strategic interventions, coordinate student support, measure impact of these interventions. It enables advisors to nudge students at critical points in the semester, and it provides more intentional success coaching to students and mobile access to scheduling and success messaging. Most importantly, it gives all of our campuses the ability to tailor their implementation to their specific needs and the state of adoption on their campus. In addition, it gives us access to amazing consultants at EAB who work with us in determining best approaches and to a national network that keeps us up to date on best practices. Here today to share with us a brief overview of their campus work with Navigate are Shara Page, Interim Director of Advising at the University of Maine at Presque Isle, and Sherry Frazier, the Dean of Students at the University of Maine at Augusta. And I will turn things over to Sherry and get her slide all ready for her.
Thank you and good afternoon. I know we're here today to really focus on the Navigate tools, but I do want to note that I find EAB to be a tremendous source of professional development for myself and for my team. We use the daily briefings, the webinars, and the professional resources available in their library. And again, we find it really a very valuable way to stay up to date and to get ideas. As for Navigate use at UMA, the most active users are our professional advisors, our student support and development team, and our TRIO Scholars staff. Our initial use focused on simple communication and transactions. We used the scheduling tool to make appointments for advising, academic coaching, and tutoring. We sent text messages to remind students about those appointments, deadlines, and upcoming events. And, even with this more simple transactional activity, we saw some differences. And while we cannot claim direct cause and effect, in the first year of scheduling, we saw that students who made advising appointments in Navigate had persistence rates about 15% higher than those who did not. We then moved to using Navigate to assist with more holistic interventions and tracking. The Navigate quick summary snapshot of a student's status really helps staff to not miss important details that may impact a student's progress. The access to shared notes in Navigate keeps us informed on the efforts of others. This is especially important at UMA, where a student may be working with staff at the campus, staff at the center, and staff in specialized programs like JMG, our TRIO Scholars, programs like athletics. We're now using Navigate alerts and progress reports to bring faculty into the mix and to more proactively head off risk. We started having faculty issue alerts on individual students who were on their radar, and then the staff would follow up with interventions. We then piloted mid-semester reports with a few faculty. Our real breakthrough came this past year when we asked all faculty to provide progress reports for every class. We did one round of reports in the fall, and then this spring, we asked every faculty member to do a report early, just after ad drop, and then another one at the mid-semester time. Submitted reports were assigned to staff who did outreach. Over 60% of the faculty submitted reports. They identified over 500 students who were flagged for follow-up. One of the other things that we're finding is that we're changing the culture in the classroom to include earlier assessments in the classroom as well. In the past, I felt like there were kind of two separate camps for working with students. Faculty primarily worked with students in the learning management system, Brightspace, and staff primarily worked in the student information system, Main Street. With EAB Navigate, we have a shared tool, and it's really encouraging faculty and staff to work together in a more collaborative, coordinated way to be helpful to students and to be more proactive. I will now turn it over to Umpy.
Thank you. My name is Shara Page, and I'm the Interim Director of Advising at UMPI. And we've been using EAB since approximately 2018 with marked success in our student persistence and retention rates. We have 3 academic alerts that go out every semester in addition to the enrollment census that we do. That includes an early alert about 4 weeks in, a midterm alert, which coincides with midterms, and a third quarter alert as a follow-up. What we do is these alerts, campaigns are opened up to faculty. The faculty respond and they give us feedback as to which students are struggling and why are they struggling. The campaigns run about 5 days, and then we have a 12-person progress report outreach group that meets to discuss the alerts for all the students. That group consists of athletics, advising, student support services, residence life, and financial aid. So collaboratively, we create cases. So a case on a student may consist of just one academic alert that they have. They may have had 3 or 4, one from each class. So we create those cases so that way it's a comprehensive snapshot of what the student has going on at that point in time. And at that point, then we go back to our respective offices and we begin outreach. Each student receives a minimum of at least 2 attempts at outreach for support to find out why it is and what's going on. And what I want to point out that's really important, our faculty have really been on board with this since the get-go, which is huge. And the only questions we had at one point was why are we doing midterm grades and these midterm reports? And simply put, these reports give us the why behind the student. A student might have been reported having a C+. Does that C+ represent they're struggling, maybe they've had COVID, there are things going on, or does that C+ represent growth and development? These reports, this platform allows us to see why our students are doing how they're doing and when. So, Rosa, I hope I do this right and I don't shut it off. Okay. So as you see, we started in fall of 2018, and the blue line and the orange line represent our outreach to students, okay? So in fall of 18, we did outreach. Approximately 59% of the students that did not respond to our outreach, that's the blue line. The orange line are students that did respond positively to the outreach. And the gray line represents our institutional average of persistence semester by semester. So as you see, the students that are responding to this outreach that we do are persisting at a higher rate overall. And you'll see that carry on until what I refer to as the COVID flip in spring of 20, where everything really got flipped upside down, including here. What some of these numbers mean is that if we were to calculate the difference in tuition revenue with interventions instead of students that persisted, so if those that persisted at a higher rate had only persisted at the rate of their peers that did not respond to intervention, we're looking at a difference of approximately 132 student enrollments across 6 semesters, 1,584 difference in credit hours attempted, and approximately $388,080 in tuition revenue. And that is based on in-state tuition revenue. So this truly shows that EAB is benefiting UMPI. I think it can benefit the UMaine system as a greater whole. There are benefits to being a smaller campus. Obviously, we have one outreach group, but I think there are ways to address that across the other campuses. And it's something that I want to see continue because it is well worth the effort. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Would you like questions?
Yeah, right, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Can do it.
Well,
If
we
there are
were
any.
going to hold till the end, but if someone has a
Yeah, they
question,
just
it might be timely now.
If there's any questions, by all means, or otherwise we'll wait to the end. But if it's something that comes up, we'll do it.
We're here, so no
Okay.
worries.
Thank you.
So the second presentation that we had planned for today actually came about quite accidentally. We were on a campus visit at the University of Maine at Fort Kent, and the students were preparing for what was going to be a poster session, I think later that day or later in the week. And we happened to wander by when one of the students was preparing, and her presentation topic was about mental health services with international students specifically. And her presentation, we stopped and said, could you give us a quick, a few minute rundown of your presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting disrupted.
Okay. I thought all of a sudden I was in trouble. Didn't know what just happened.
So why don't we just wait a few minutes? Carol,
Sure.
while they do that?
I don't know.
Because these people don't. Okay, I didn't do it. I think we're trying to help the.
Yeah, they're trying to type.
Well, I'll do the same and slide this over.
Trying to type. And we're supposed to type first. Yeah, no problem.
It's under 75.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So as I mentioned, we sort of wandered by and Lisa offered to give us a quick rundown of her presentation. And it was really fascinating. Again, it related specifically to international students and the statistics that related to their experience with mental health services and whether or not they would access those services and why they would or would not. Under normal circumstances, want to reach out and access those services. So she was going to present here today as the next presenter, but unfortunately she's is not feeling well and wasn't able to travel. So I don't want to give her presentation, because it's her presentation and she did an absolutely fantastic job with it. But also I think we might invite her back at a later date to give us, if she's still, I know she's an international student, so if she is still in the country, to come back and give us a presentation later. But what I did want to do is pull out just a few quick sort of statistics to set the stage for that, and then we will move on to the presentation on DEI. In your packet, in addition to the presentation that Lisa was going to give, there is also some detailed information about what each of the campuses offers right now for mental health services, how the students are accessing them, the percent typically of the students that are accessing the services, and then also what the campuses might feel are current gaps in what they're offering. So there is a summary of that in your packet, but then the last page of that, or the last few paragraphs, talks about the system as a whole. And some of the information that it gave was that, as you all know, we offer a system-wide service with Silver Cloud. They're an online mental health service provider. They offer a variety of services to our students, and they can access them many different ways. About 1,200 of our total student population has registered an active account with Silver Cloud to date. So that is a fairly small percent of all of the students that we service. And from that group, if you're looking, I did pull a couple of Lisa's numbers, Lisa Augustine. I keep looking at Lisa LeDuc and I think she's going to think it's her. So she had mentioned in her paper that the students, international students, tend to not participate in services like that for a variety of reasons, that about 17% of international students who have indicated they have some form of anxiety or issue that they would like help with, only 17% will reach out and actually try and access services. Our numbers were a bit higher than that, but overall, only 5% were actually reaching out through the Silver Cloud network. But there are other services at each campus, so that percentage isn't really accurate of, only 5% are reaching out in total. It's that many are working with Silver Cloud. One of the things that did seem to be consistent across the board is the campuses all felt that they were spending more time and effort on the mental health service part of what they do, their student services, over the last few years, given the rise in reporting from students that they were feeling more anxious and depressed, but that they felt that there was a gap maybe in funding for training and development of their staff and their faculty and those who might be some of the initial contacts with those students. So that would be an area that, as we continue to talk about how the system might become more engaged, that's an area where we might be able to jump in and try and really offer some of that frontline support to folks that we know are the front line, but then some of those that we may not think of that are interacting with students, and would be able to offer some of that information to them. And a very quick statistic before I turn it over again to Rosa and her group for the DEI presentation. Just recently, within the last 5 months, there was a new survey that was released, and it talked about the state of mental health services with college students today. 71% of the students did report that they felt they had an actual mental health crisis. They would have rated it at the level of crisis in the last year. But 80% reported that they were overwhelmed and anxious and that it affected their academic performance, but they would not have, they wouldn't believe that it elevated to the level of a crisis. But that is a big number, 80%, talking about the fact that some of these areas were impacting their academic performance. So again, very timely that we're having these conversations with the trustees, the student and faculty representatives, and the campus representatives. So at this time,
Before you turn it over, maybe there might be some questions.
Sure.
At this part. Anyone have any questions or comments? I do.
Okay. Don't forget, I'm standing in for the presenter.
Yeah. I guess we got to do a technical check.
Trustee Kane, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Trustee Cates, can you hear us?
Yes, I sure can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The stats you just gave are overwhelming. When I think you said 70 to 80% of the students have some kind of a
yes
crisis during
Mhm.
the year. Or
In the last year,
In the last
decade,
year.
yeah,
And we only have nationally, only 15% of the students are seeking out help.
correct.
So if we assume that's true for our
Mm-hmm.
population, that means we've got a lot of students that are really in need of
Right.
some support and they're not getting it.
And I think that.
So what do we do about that?
Well, I think one of the important things, it's to try and understand why they're not accessing the services.
Yeah,
Is it something that they're not aware that we have the ability to connect them with the folks that can help them? Is it more with the international group? With Lisa's presentation, it was a lot about their culture and the way that they looked at and felt that they would interact with that type of an environment, and also some language barriers. So it could be a variety of reasons, but I think it's very important that we understand why. If there's 80% of the people who are having some sort of a mental health issue, but only 15% are reaching out for help, and what is the gap?
if I were a student, I was reaching out for help and I went to you say it's
Silver Cloud.
Silver Cloud.
Mhm.
Is that an extra cost for me or is that?
No, no.
It's part of the whole,
Yes, it is. It's free. And they also have,
is that
there's-
understood, you think, very well?
well, I don't, Rosa, do you know on the student side how I know every campus.
Communicated by the campuses to their students.
Mhm.
And it's an online tool that's really, okay. It's an online tool that's really intended to handle kind of mild to moderate
Mhm.
symptoms. And it's built in such a way that should a student experience other symptoms, they're really urged to talk to their on-campus mental health services.
We're connected with other.
Exactly.
And the 3 campuses that have the highest number of students that are participating in Silver Cloud, and again, that is just one resource that we have, UMA, and USM. Those 3 campuses happen, of course, they're also the larger campuses, so their statistics would probably be higher. Yes.
Following up on Mark's point, can we make an assumption that that gap is that big? Because I remember we heard from the students who said that they experienced mental health issues, but they were often alleviated by participation in student groups. I mean, I don't want to make the leap to assume that this is all uncared for and that they may have other alternatives.
Right. So the the percentages we're giving are those who have actually reached out for an official service. But it could just be that they've talked with their faculty advisor, or they've met with a student mentor and been able to either be connected with services, or that was enough, having that person to talk to and confide in. So these are the statistics that we have, but there is a.
However, at the last meeting, we had a very good discussion on this topic, and the student reps were raising it as they need more help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got a gap here somewhere.
Mhm. Yes.
Not getting enough help.
Right.
If we listen to the students
Mhm.
and, okay, so it's.
And part of the emphasis that we talked about last time, and that I've looked into since March, was more about the student mentoring programs. Because again, as a student, would I be comfortable reaching out to my faculty member? Would I think that might impact for, my class, my experience? Would I want to go into an official office, or would I feel more comfortable with someone that I relate to more as a student or a peer? So we are looking and researching different types of peer groups and student mentoring groups that work with that type of population, and then connect them with services. So.
Anybody else on this topic? Questions? Comments? No? Thank you. Well,
Yes, of course. And hopefully we'll be able to have Lisa Augustine at some point. Her presentation was very dynamic.
Hello again.
Hi.
Did you want to?
No, I said hi.
Okay.
I said hello. Hi.
You're responding. Very good. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide an update on our DEI work. We'll be sharing with you both an overview of our system-wide work and the intersection of that to the wonderful, amazing work of our campuses, as well as to provide a little deeper dive into the work and focus of 2 of our universities. Let me introduce our presenters. Idella Glenn, Vice President for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Impact, University of Southern Maine. Susan Baker, Professor of Science and co-chair of the UMA DEI Council, University of Maine at Augusta. Megan Clough, Director of Learning and Organizational Development and co-chair of the UMS DEI Steering Committee, University of Maine System, and me. Ray Rice and Loretta Shields are also on the UMS DEI Steering Committee. Many of you will probably remember this framework from when we talked with you about a year ago. It is a representation of how the UMS DEI Steering Committee and the University Councils connect and interface, and how other key initiatives such as UMS Transforms and the talent acquisition work occurring within HR also play a role and intersect. The UMS Transforms work has DEI embedded within all of its initiatives. These not only provide the important DEI focus for those projects, but add to the overall collective focus for all of our other DEI components. Our DEI work really must encompass three key pieces: human capital, education, research, and service, and the development of an inclusive culture. Again, you'll probably remember this from the slide, and we did this not so long ago. I'm going to turn things over to, oh, actually, do I have one more? Nope, I'm turning things over to Megan. We're going to go back and forth, so.
Okay, my name is Megan Clough. Again, I'm the Director of Learning and Organizational Development. I specialize in culture change in small and complex systems. Sorry, I'm trying to prepare for the fact that so I specialize in culture change of small and complex organizations. And what you're looking at here is some research that was written up by a gentleman named Kevin Oakes. His book published in January 2021, and it does an excellent job encapsulating what it is to be intentional about culture design and maintenance. And so when you're trying to make something core to your culture, one of the ways that you do that is essentially look at the actions and behaviors that translate to your culture now and think about, okay, what do we need to change in order to renovate the culture for new behaviors and actions? And so these 18 steps equate to the ways in which you would systematically begin to change a culture. So the University of Maine System, DEI Steering Committee, which is intentionally comprised of an incredible group of people that have membership across each one of the DEI councils from every one of the campuses, plus our shared services leaders, essentially embarked on trying to use this model for culture renovation. And so one of the things I want to introduce you to is that first step: create a comprehensive listening strategy. That's where we started. I'm going to take you down that road here. That's a busy slide. And so it has a, let me do that in a snapshot for you. So the top left of that slide introduces the timing of you as a board and the chancellor dedicating a UMS DEI steering committee. On the bottom left-hand side, the overall UMS DEI steering committee unanimously decided to, as a first step, implement a climate survey across every one of the campuses. Actually, our results are due in this month. We're very excited about that. We also have been utilizing other information collected around DEI for our comprehensive listening strategy, including a session that was done last year in April for UMS Transforms, and as well as doing some focus groups planned for the fall in follow-up to the HEAD survey. We also have a communication subcommittee. One of the things that we feel is very important is we recognize them when people choose a university, they use Google. And having a son who is starting college in the fall, I did a lot of Google searches on different campuses. And so one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that there is a dedicated presence to DEI across the University of Maine system. And so we are currently in draft on that DEI website. When I say in draft, we're very collective in how we do our work. We co-create by design. So our design will ultimately have input from various other constituents that haven't yet seen it. And on the bottom right-hand side, training and education, we are devising a training curation team. The great news is we have an incredible amount of talent across the University of Maine system who is doing this work. In addition, for instance, to the people already named, I have laid eyes on at least one other DEI committee member from our University of Maine who's active leader in this space as well. And I may be missing people, so if I'm missing someone, please forgive me. So I'm going to pass this over right now to Susan Baker, who will, oh, I'm passing it, sorry.
And then I pass it to Susan. In addition to what Megan has shared, over the summer of 2021, we offered a summer intensive deep dive. I guess I could do the right slide, that's good, into DEI for all of our admissions offices, undergraduate and graduate, and including representation from financial aid and marketing. The work included a process mapping of the recruitment and admission process, which you can imagine was invaluable. Introduced DEI integration approach per organizational development and customer experience research. We had some amazing consultants from Disney and talking about the Disney customer experience from a DEI perspective. It was fabulous. And we facilitated an admissions relevant DEI concepts and action training. And again, it was a summer intensive this past summer. Follow-up projects were identified as a part of that work and are currently underway. We also have a data subcommittee, which is currently collecting any DEI data that does exist on both student and employees. We're determining the gaps that exist in our current knowledge and exploring how to develop a dashboard where we can share key metrics and track our progress as this work grows and expands. The data visualization on this slide gives you a little bit of an idea of some of our thinking. The results from our campus climate survey, as Megan mentioned, will greatly expand our data related to DEI and will start pointing the way towards projects and initiatives. We have lots of work going on at every single one of our campuses. All of our campuses have DEI councils and initiatives underway, and they have the important conversations and initiative development that identify opportunities for promoting and embracing a DEI culture. And this, of course, by its very essence, enhances the success of our students and indeed the entire UMS community. UMA and USM are going to be presenting in just 1 minute. And these are just some examples of what is occurring at other campuses. There are many, many more. And I have no doubt that presidents and our law dean would love to talk more about this should the opportunity come up. I'm going to turn things over to Susan Baker to talk about the great work at UMA.
Thank you, Rosa. And thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you about DEI work at UMA. In my 40 years of teaching at UMA, this is my first time presenting to the board. So I think I can check that off my academic bucket list. All right. I'm going to frame my remarks on advice I heard at a global health conference. And that advice was start small, dream big, and relentlessly seek impact. So we'll begin with start small. 12 years ago, 3 new to Maine Somalian students enrolled in my chemistry class. They were learning English and chemistry, and I was learning about their culture and their needs. One of those needs was a place to pray. We didn't have a prayer room. And so I opened the physics lab for them each week so they would have a place to pray. Another need was academic support. And in particular, this came to bear when there was a snowstorm forecast and the administration at that time was unlikely to call a snow day. They were afraid that they would not be able to make the drive, and they were really concerned about getting behind. And so I asked someone in IT, AKA my husband, if there was a way that we could record, he could come in and record that day's lecture in case they needed to miss class. Not trusting the technology, Yusuf and Abdi and Abdul Karim all came to class anyway. I recorded the lecture for those who did not brave the snow that day and posted it online. The 3 of them watched that lecture. They heard the lecture and then they watched the lecture. The next week they said, "Do you think you could keep doing that?" So I said to my husband, "Do you think we could keep doing that?" And he said, "Sure." I mean, what was he going to say? And so they came to class. They watched those lectures and their grades in the course went up by a full letter grade. Fast forward to today. Abdi graduated with a degree in medical lab technology and works in the field. Yusuf, after graduation, went to University of New England and completed the physician assistant program and is working at a medical practice in Oakland. Abdul Karim founded the nonprofit Public Health Initiatives, or New Mainers Public Health Initiatives, and recently took a position at Maine CDC. Yusuf and Abdul Karim are working in the community to assist that next generation of New Mainers to connect to a college education. All classrooms at UMA now have the capability to record lectures so we can post them for students. And demographics show a steady increase in the racial and ethnic diversity of the student body at UMA. Dream big. Today, UMA has an active DEI council, well supported by the president's office. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Members of the DEI council wrote the fifth pillar of UMA's strategic plan titled Fostering Inclusion. This strategic goal represents the large-scale inclusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion goals in UMA's strategic planning process for the first time. Over the last year, we worked with Dr. Anthony James, Associate Professor in Family Sciences at Miami, Ohio. Dr. James recently served as the Interim Vice President of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion and Chair of the DEI Task Force at his university. He also authored a book on a practical guide to DEI. Dr. James gave multiple presentations, held listening sessions with students, faculty, and staff. He worked with campus leadership in the DEI Council to help us prioritize what steps we should take first and next in our strategic plan. He was also our commencement speaker this year, and I'm pleased to report that our president has approved another year of Dr. James staying on as our consultant. So a DEI focus in the STRAP plan and bringing in expertise to help. Those were essential components to us being able to move from dreaming big to seeking relentless impact, relentlessly seeking impact. So let me share some of that impact at UMA. The DEI Council supported and advocated for improvements to physical spaces. This includes renovating the privacy and lactation rooms on the Augusta and Bangor campus, adding prayer and meditation rooms on both campuses. No more opening the physics lab. And we have planned voodoo ablution stations on the Augusta campus as well. We've supported resources and training to assist the Writing Center tutors working with the English language learner students. Okay. We've worked with the Academic Policy Committee to expand pathways to language credit. That pathway allowed one of my advisees, Ahmed, to graduate last Saturday when we thought it would take another semester for him to earn his degree. We offer DEI mini grants. The purpose of these grants is to support the DEI initiatives of the UMA community. So some of those examples include supporting purchase of laptops for our recent reentry justice impacted students associated with the Prison Education Partnership, purchasing an African-American torso model for anatomy and physiology labs, and Asian models are planned for next year. We've also sponsored a number of campus events that are DEI related. Now, the next two are where dreaming big and relentlessly seeking impact come together. We offer 7 equity and inclusion scholarships to students whose achievement and varied academic achievement and varied experiences will enhance and enrich the education of all UMA students and the educational mission of UMA. Scholarships for up to $3,000 a year for the entirety of your education. So it's not you don't have to apply every year. It's for your 4 years or what it takes. This year we have 82 applicants to review. We supported initiatives related to our this year's academic theme, and the theme was Race and Social Justice, and it was based on the theme book of Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. We are excited about next year's academic theme, which is also DEI related. You see, I just read this one to get ready for work we did, and this is called Disability Visibility. And that will be our theme for next year. And in support of all this work, we are proud to be adding a DEI postdoctoral scholar for the 2022-2023 academic year. The person in this position will have teaching responsibilities in our cultural diversity gen ed area and dedicate at least 50% of their workload to supporting the fostering inclusion objectives of the strategic plan, and also working with the DEI Council. And lastly, I really want to thank the Chancellor and the system for forming the system-wide DEI Steering Committee. That has really been transformative. In doing so has created collaborations among the campuses and sharing of resources. And as you've heard, thanks to the chancellor's support, because we dreamed big and we had a big ask, will you sponsor the ability for us to offer this campus climate survey across all of the campuses? And the answer was yes. And we need help being able to evaluate this, and the answer was yes. So we're really looking forward to those results because it'll inform and guide our campuses and the entire UMaine system as we move forward in this DEI work. So now we're going to hear from Idella Glenn. Dr. Glenn is absolutely an inspiration to me in the work that she does. So Idella, oh boy, and there's buttons to be pushed. Oh, I got it. Woo.
Thank you, Susan. What a big act to follow. I'm Idella Glenn, Vice President for Equity, Inclusion, and Community Impact here at the University of Southern Maine. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm pleased to give you a quick snapshot of the work that's been happening here at USM since I joined in September of 2020. It seems like a long, long time ago, but one of the things that I remember from my, I did 3 rounds of virtual interviews to actually take this job at USM. Actually never visited the campus before I accepted this job. But one of the questions that I remember distinctly from one person is, how are you going to change the culture? So that's a great question, because that really is what this work is about. I've been in this field or in this area for, wow, when I say 30 years, that feels like a long time. But I started when I was 5. So I am really committed to this work. And as a senior or chief diversity officer, this work kind of goes into 3 buckets. Improve the campus climate, number 1. Diversify the campus community, and then enhance the diversity capabilities through projects, initiatives, relationship, and presence. And so this framework of the cultural renovation gave some really great language to what I had already started to do at the University of Southern Maine. So several of those 18 steps were things that I was engaging in without realizing that I was actually following that framework. So thank you for that introduction, Megan. One of the things, so my position was created. And so I, right now, am a one-person-ish office. I have administrative support and another position that was created. That's a 2-year position that I'll talk about a little bit later, but I really couldn't or can't get this work done at USM without the support and collaboration of others. And so I was introduced to this notion of shared equity leadership. And that is where equity becomes everyone's responsibility, and multiple campus stakeholders collectively share leadership for equity. So it's not just me, I'm leading the work, but one of the things that I spoke to cabinet about, speak to my colleagues here about, is that I have to have that collaboration in order to get this work done. And, you know, I struggled with like where to start as a new person coming in. I knew that there was some great work already being done, but one of the things that is new in this experience at the University of Southern Maine is kind of where we're situated in Maine. Like I said, I had never, well, I didn't visit USM. I had been to Maine once. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm a Southerner. I grew up my whole life in the South, never lived outside of the South until I came here last year. And so I had a particular life experience lens in looking at this work. But one of the things that I've learned really quickly about what it means to be in Maine is the significance of recognizing or understanding our connection to the Native population here in Maine. And to me, that has kind of shifted my thinking about this work and understanding that that is the first place where we need to begin. And many of our events start with a land acknowledgement. And I think it's important to acknowledge the land, but we also have to say what we're doing, in response, not just read a statement and, go on about our way. And so one of the things that I do with our diversity council is, we read the statement and then I say, well, this is an opportunity for you to be involved. One of the resources that I introduced was this book called Colorizing Restorative Justice. And they in there talk about repairing that first harm, which to me is the foundation of this work. And so we've had some emphasis these last couple of years on how we support our Native students, faculty, and staff. We're still have some work to do in that area. And I think, on our slide is talking about the convocation focus that we had last year, the rivers we belong to, grounding Indigenous presence and sovereignty. So this is just very important for us to remember that that is the foundation of this work. And we actually this year, there were about 15 of us that spent a year co-learning the restorative practices from the Restorative Justice Institute here in Maine. And those participants will be helping us to figure out how to use those practices with our bias response team. And hopefully we'll be rolling that out next year. I mentioned our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Council, Idec, and this is a group that had been formed. President Cummings would appoint co-chairs of that committee, and this particular group has really, before I came to USM, been very active on campus. Now I'm kind of coaching or leading that particular group. We're divided into 6 committees: hiring and retention, curriculum, the student experience, which is led by our Idec fellows, our programming committee, policy committee, and then our communications and resources committee. And all of those committees work really hard. They put forward several proposals that then I get to take to cabinet and think about how we actually make those proposals a reality. Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, this is a great idea, but a lot of my work is really trying to figure out how to operationalize those proposals. The steering committee is composed of the co-chairs of all of those committees, and we meet monthly. And then, so before I came here, they would have these big IDEC meetings where anybody could come and just say what they wanted to say, which was a great kind of open forum. But one of the things that we did differently was to not just, you couldn't just be an IDEC and not do any work. And so you had to be on a committee. And so we changed these open forums to twice a semester so that we could bring people together, not just to say what was on their mind, but to also use that as an opportunity for updates as well as professional development. And then we have our end of the year celebration event actually this week. And our student fellows will be talking about their experience with IDEC, and we're really proud of the work that they've done. Even in this, I don't know what normal looks like here because I started in the pandemic, and I keep saying to the students, well, next year you're going to have a normal experience outside of COVID. And it's amazing what we've learned from that experience. It's really kind of shaped the way we do this work. And so one of the proposals that we took a look at was trying to figure out we started out calling it a faculty fellow or someone who could help support the work of my office. And we had this long job description. And as I looked at it, I said, yeah, that's a lot for one person. And we put it out there and we received like 14 applications, which was great. And so I was like, wow, there are a lot of people that want to do this work from faculty and staff. So what I ended up doing was hiring 7 of those people breaking that job description down into projects. And some of those projects line up with the work that Idec was already doing. So one of the projects is taking a look, and actually it's one of the cultural renovation steps, is leveraging our employee resource groups. And we're in the process of developing a policy that they could fit up under. But we have a faculty and staff of color group that has been meeting regularly, an LGBTQ group, as well as a neurodiverse and disability group. And so we're hoping to provide some structure for those groups. And we're collaborating with HR to get that policy underway. One of the other projects that I'll just highlight a couple more of these is the programming one. And so we have, like I said, a lot of good work that's going on at USM, but we don't really coordinate that work, or we don't know when another organization, another department is doing something. So we're trying to figure out how to bring us all together to talk about, okay, so what are you planning for the year, and how do we support our athletics, or how do we support information or events put on by our arts units? And so we have identified a few folks that we're going to bring together so we can kind of hash that out. And so that next year, we'll know who's on first when it comes to Black History Month or celebrating MLK or any of the observances that we have on campus. One of the other projects that we're highlighting that I'd like to highlight is the Equity Advisors. And that was, again, a proposal put forward by Idec Hiring and Retention Committee to train a few folks to increase their awareness around diversity, equity, inclusion when it comes to hiring. And so we are piloting that this fall. We have about 8 people who will be a part of that pilot. They're going to attend a training that Oregon State does, that's online. And we'll, again, coordinate with HR and hopefully roll that out next year. We also have a group that's taking a look at our curriculum. And again, our Idec curriculum committee had already done a lot of work. They have a lot of resources that we'll be using to not so much like tell particular faculty what's wrong or what's not, what's missing from their course, but to give them the resources to do that as well. And one of the things that I was connected with this year was a group of faculty who were putting some attention on anti-racism and how do you incorporate anti-racism practices into your curriculum. And what we realized was that, people actually have to do their own work, before they can do that. So we spent some time on that. Also, we are in actually stage 3 of becoming a campus affiliate of the National Coalition Building Institute. It's an international organization that's US based, but really it creates campus. We are creating a campus team here at USM to, again, give people the skills, information, and knowledge they need to go out and train others. And so last spring, the cabinet did a half-day session with the organization. And I was hoping to do 2 exposure workshops for the campus so that we could identify people to be trained. But we ended up waiting until March because I wanted to do that in person. And it was really our first time meeting in person. And so in March, we had 2 days of all-day workshops. About 72 people participated in those workshops. And from those, now we have about 40 people starting tomorrow that'll go through a 3-day training. And then we'll be rolling out the USM NCBI campus affiliate. So we'll learn how to facilitate this one-day model. I've been doing that work for well over 20 years myself and lead this work on other campuses. So I'm pleased to be bringing it to USM and excited and nervous at the same time because this is work that is not surface level DEI work. We really do delve deep into some issues. The last thing, I think that's the last thing I'll say, is that USM was already or had been working on a strategic plan for our university. Priority 3 was leading on equity, diversity, and belonging. And what I'm working on now is incorporating that into a diversity strategic plan. So even though our work as an overall strategic plan is somewhat on hold, I'm still doing the work to try to get our plan outlined, but a lot of the work is already being done. I've just got to fit all these pieces together. And so the campus climate survey that was done system-wide will be really helpful in that effort. And I'll stop right there. There's a lot going on here. Like I said, I'm pleased to be here and to be among faculty, staff, and students who really want to engage in this work. And do I turn it over to Carolyn? Yes, thank you.
So we have about maybe 20 minutes left before the next part of the agenda. We had 2 questions that we were going to sort of discuss with the trustees and the representatives to the board. I think what might be a better use of time is to focus on the first question, and the second one I can send around to the group they can respond sort of by survey, because the first question talks about priorities and some of the things we'd like to focus on based on what we've been talking about in the last few meetings. The second question was really, how best can we engage you moving forward? How would you like updates? What would be the best way to get news out? So that could probably be done maybe via survey. So the question that I'd like to pose to the trustees and to the student and faculty representatives to the board is, if you had to identify one priority or an initiative that you would like to address or expand upon, which one would it be? And I know it's difficult. We've talked about a lot of different things over the past 2 meetings, but is there something in particular? You have the mic. You have to go first.
I have the mic, so I'm going first. Huh? This is kind of interesting because, yeah, it's the end of the semester, but I'm already starting to prepare for fall because we have a bridge program coming up that starts mid-August. And it struck me with the mental health piece, because we have done a bridge program that usually handles, between 10 and 18 students. And the last 3 years, I have always had at least one trip where I have escorted a student over to our mental health counselor. We're working with the students close enough, and it just got to the point they needed to talk with somebody. And our mental health counselor is actually not yet on contract because the semester hasn't started. It's not September 1st. So there's some interesting aspects that are there. So I usually see enough of the stress and strain of those first students coming on campus that I know that that is an effort that we need to. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually have to say, I hadn't heard of Silver Cloud. So there clearly is a lack of communication about that option.
Okay.
So knowing that, I'm going to find out more about it.
All right, perfect.
My name is Sophia Patton. I did my undergrad at the University of Maine, Orono, and I'm currently at USM doing my master's at the Muskie School. I have to second what you said. I also have never heard of that program before. So I think getting the word out about that would be really important. But also looping back to the EAB's Navigate program. Like I said, I did my undergrad at the University of Maine, and my first year I was under the impression that attending class was optional. And I think that ability for professors and staff and advisors to have check-in reports probably would have saved me and many other students a fun little conversation with the parents that I've been asked to take a semester off. But I think also coming back from the position of being on academic probation, I also then had two advisors. I had the advisor who helped me pick classes and give me pins. And then I had my academic advisor who was trying to stay on top of me to make sure that I course corrected myself, which I did. And I think having that portal that those two individuals could share notes is super important, because my advisor who gave me the pin to register for classes had no idea that I was trying to get my GPA back where it needed to be. And I think that would be a huge help to students and professors so that they have an understanding of what's going on with their students more so than just a face in the class. And additionally, you mentioned that there were text reminders for appointments with academic appointments. And I think that would be really helpful because most of it is done over email. And so it's an extra step of making sure that you add that to your calendar. But speaking for a bunch of 20-year-olds, I know a text reminder is super helpful to just kind of remind us that we need to be somewhere at a certain time. Thank you.
Oh, very nice. A lot like you thinking that your attendance was optional. I always felt like speed limit signs were just suggestions. So I understand how that goes.
Still on the topic of mental health, I will further say I've never heard of Silver Cloud. And talking to my peers who engage in mental health counseling, one of their concerns, and something that legitimately dissuades some who need it from getting it, is the fact that it shows up so labeled on their bill. So they then have to talk to whoever is paying their bill about that. And some people don't want to do that and therefore don't get counseling.
It's a very good point. I'll have to check on that because if there's no charge, I'm not sure why, how or why it would appear on the bill. So I will have to look into that.
Yes, I know people who are in counseling and it is a charge on their bill.
I also want to raise the point that we should perhaps be focusing on the first year classes and making sure those courses are delivered in a way that is respectful and observant of students' mental health. Again, I don't know, I cannot speak for every faculty member, but I will speak from my own experience teaching foundational courses in chemistry and environmental science at UMFK. Name is Senator Bert Mason, by the way. And in those courses, we do have a lot of students who are going to be, and they do in fact show signs of stress and challenges throughout the semester. And a number of things I do is I actually build into the course opportunities for students to engage in peer-to-peer mentoring and really building in a social support network. So perhaps if we put some more emphasis on that and training and educating faculty on the benefits and the how to do that, that could potentially be another pathway to supporting students' mental and emotional health.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Any one of the trustees or those that presented that are working with student services?
One of the things that's come up, and it's clear that we don't all know what we know across the whole system. And so there's got to be a great opportunity here for figuring out how things are done in one place could be done the same, or if they're done better in another place or not done at all. How do we get across the whole network of campuses and people that we have in the system to know what could be done for these certain circumstances that would be, doesn't have to be exactly the same way, or probably not the same services, because the state's pretty big in that regard. But it does strike me that this is uncovering one of the most basic things, which is make sure the whole system knows the same thing.
Right. And if there is a campus that has a service or an opportunity for student engagement that is their most popular with students, then we could learn about why that is, versus if Silver Cloud isn't the one. You know, what is it about the other one that makes it something they really want to be part of?
Are there other questions or comments from trustees?
I'll kind of follow up. You're mentioning the universities. We also need to think about the region because Washington County does not have really anybody, I think, that can prescribe medicine. In that area. They have to go farther away. I'm pretty sure of that.
Wow.
The other thing, when we're talking about the statistics, one of the things that I've actually seen more over about the last 5 years is students coming to college who already are seeing somebody at their hometown. And I'm seeing more of an effort of them trying to stay connected with them. And I don't know if that's anything that we can do to help keep that there, facilitate it, or acknowledge the number of students that might be doing that.
That's a really good point. As you were saying that, it may be that they're in their living arrangement in a dorm. They may not have a private space where they could have a Zoom conference with a counselor from home. So perhaps providing space that allows them the ability and technology to do that. Okay. Right. Very good. Any others? Yes.
Mike Scott, faculty rep for the University of Maine. I think one of the most important priorities is communications. Communications among the campuses, communications among the faculty, students, as well as communications to the system and to the Board of Trustees. Because as you can see with Silver Cloud, the communication isn't really robust enough. And again, that's the first time I heard about Silver Cloud. But even the DEI and a lot of other initiatives, the communication has to be a priority and not filtered. And, a lot of times I think we had talked with Chair, a couple, Chair Rotondo and Trish Riley about possibly having BOT reps, BOT members being assigned to a campus. And that way you have much more access to some of the activities as well as vice versa. So again, I know we've talked about this in the past, but communications and to recognize that you have to question whether we do have appropriate communications and how do we improve that? So.
And that does tie into the second question, which I will email to folks, and it specifically talks about communication and how to engage in more efficient ways. So that will be a question that will come out. Did I see someone? Yes.
Curiosity killed the cat. So for those faculty members who didn't know about Silver Cloud, I'm sure people have tried to get to you. What's the best way? How do you learn things? What's the best way to reach you? What would you look at? There must be an assault of information. So how does information best get to you?
Well, for me, I happen to know the director of the counseling center. Most faculty members do not. And we are sort of the first line of students who might have issues, but we're not really aware of, we could say go to the counseling center, but I think the counseling center is backed up at least 2 to 3 weeks. And if that's all we tell the students, that there's no other solutions, then that's really not a good thing to tell the students. So the question becomes, why are we not aware of Silver Cloud? And what are the other services that we're not aware of? So.
I think as someone who was in the faculty for many years, I may not have been as attentive to some of those emails, but we had either department meetings where our dean would give us updates or faculty trainings at the beginning and the end of a semester where they would give updates. And I think that's probably where I would get the majority of the detail about things like that, services that may not be on the academic side. So that could be a route that we could also take. Go ahead.
At UMFK, a lot of times these types of communications work best if they're done right before the beginning of the semester. So as you had mentioned at faculty development events, also we have a syllabus template that is recommended to faculty. When things like that are built into the template, often faculty will or should review that template before they update their syllabus. And then they can just copy and paste that text in. So even if they forget to mention it, it is there available to students. Thank you.
Jumping off that point, as a student, I've received many syllabus, and I think the one downfall with putting it in the back, I think it's a good backup, but it usually falls under like the diversity policies of the university and other counseling services. To be honest, I usually skip that page because it's the same in every class. So I think the target audience is the students. I think it's important that professors know, but also if a kid is in a position that they need help, maybe they don't have a professor that they can go to and talk to. And if we're relying on the back of a syllabus that they receive on the first day of class, and they probably won't look at, it might not be as effective. One thought that I had is maybe putting a tab on Brightspace. Every student is on there every single day. Grades are in there. It is literally the one application that I use every single day, summer, like over any break. That is the place that I go. And if there was like a little icon, even if it's an icon that we haven't seen before, out of curiosity, I would click on it to see what it was. And so I think that's definitely something that could be implemented. And I know that it's an excellent way to reach every student. Because I think, while I was at UMaine, we use Blackboard, but I think every campus is using Brightspace now. So I think that would be something to consider. Thank you.
Very good. Good.
I would also point out the time of the communication because, all right, I did just do a quick search and Silver Cloud was mentioned once. It did come through an email with 6 other things on the Maine Public Universities thing on July 9th, 2021. A faculty member is not going to see it very often on July 9th. We don't want to wait until after the start of the semester for the first communication because we need it really about the 1st of August. So there's the timing of the communication, making sure that there's something new coming. Here it is. If you're wanting to communicate with students or if you have a bridge program that's starting 2 weeks before that, you're aware of it. And how to best do it, it's often in some of the resources, there's usually a pamphlet or something that's built up. What are student resources that is shared that has all of the changes that has happened? So it needs to be communicated, I think, more through a campus so that we know our students are eligible for this. Because if it's just something sent out to the entire system, you don't know, is there a cost? You don't know all of the details about it.
Yes.
In a previous discussion, we've talked about paraprofessional organizations or training for students. And that, from the tone of this conversation, it seems that that could be a very special mission for that kind of undertaking. And then relating something back to a statement that was made earlier that you could wait 3 weeks for a counseling visit direct, but are we then trying to fill the gap temporarily, at least, with Silver Cloud or some other option? And I suspect that perhaps that's not taking place to the extent it could and should. So I think and for that matter, the use of work study dollars around bolstering the services and making the connections when they might otherwise not be made.
Any other?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm curious, is it more of a challenge? I'm assuming it is, so I want a confirmation that it is or isn't. Is it more of a challenge now that we have more students who are commuting and not residing on campus, or is does that factor in terms of seeing problems that need help for the students? Is that more of a challenge because we do have so many students now that commute?
Actually, yes, it is, because commuting students don't always realize they have the same access to the same services.
Yeah.
And that is the common misconception that I see.
So that's another opportunity for us to make sure that they know that they have these opportunities and support. Yeah.
And would you, from the advising side of things, would you agree with that it is the commuter population as it grows, that there's
Yeah, at UMA, we kind of had kind of a unique experience in that we've had the online and the commuter population as our majority population for a long time. And one of the things that we actually saw with the pandemic was that with all of the services being more available via Zoom and remotely, that our commuter students, our online students participated more in services and activities than they did previously. So, and now we need to look at how we can sustain, bring back more of the campus face-to-face things while sustaining the opportunities that were available online.
And so that might be something that we can do, is look at the campuses that have had higher populations in the past of commuters and best practice from that. Any other last question? We're down to the end of our time. I will send out an email with a survey to talk about engagement and communication and how you feel that would best be handled. But any other last question? Oh, yes, sorry.
Less question, more comment that
Sure.
we might also consider sending faculty and students reminders about these self-care resources around midterms. And again, a few weeks before final exams and then right around the time of finals. Those are the 3 times where students really suddenly discover that they are in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Strategic times around them. Yep.
I'll mention, as you're thinking about the commuting students, I think 2 other populations are the part-time students or those who are multi-campus, on how we make sure that they understand what resources are available.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's always it's so great to hear from students and the faculty, because we all learn something. So thank you for taking the time. Next topic is USM Athletics, and give us an update on that. I'll turn it to you, President Cummings.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Chair Gardner, specifically for requesting that we give an overview of our Division III athletic program here, and gives us a chance to kind of give people awareness. Obviously, we have the flagship Division I. All the other universities too have their athletic programs. Nice opportunity for us to talk about what we consider an exceptionally strong program for a variety of reasons. First, its focus on academics, and secondly, its connection to the community. And third, really a very surprising, given the amount of resources that we have compared to some of our competitors, a surprising record of success. I will also share with you, before I introduce him formally, that our athletic director, Al Bean, is nationally recognized for his work. He has been here for, he looks very young, so, but he's been here a few days, let's put it that way. And his reputation is outstanding. He's also a pleasure to work with. And I have to say, I've never been near that sports complex. And I'm one of the presidents that really enjoyed our sports and was there a lot, where he wasn't there. So I'm pretty sure he's working 70, 80 hours a week. And I want to say thank you. What an honor it is for me to work with him. So let me just take just a few minutes to introduce our program. First, the importance of the athletic program around 3 or 4 major areas that we want to focus on here. Student development, leadership development is the biggest component. We know that our athletes do amazing things on the field, on the court, but we also want them to be great human beings. And we have some ways that we're helping to do that, to add their character and their commitment to the work that we're doing. It's a great recruitment tool. We get many students who come to us, obviously, because they want to participate in Division III. They may not be ready for Division I or have that opportunity. And that our retention and persistence, not a surprise. They get strong academic support, they get a lot of attention, and their success academically is well above the average on the university. In fact, I think the athletic program is next only to our music program in retention and persistence, which is already exceptionally high. And finally, just generally student success in a variety of ways as we might define it. The program, I will go through in just a second, our vision, our mission, our values, which we have established. I will say that when Al and I first met, about this 7 or 8 years ago when it first came on, we went through the importance of character, success, et cetera, for student success, retention. And then he said, what do you think of winning? And I said, I like that. So we have to say that I don't want all this discussion to belie the fact, and I hope he spends some time bragging, that we have, as many of you know, we have World Series titles in baseball. We have several women's basketball national titles. And 6 out of the 7 years that I was here, both men and women, track and field, succeeded in winning the Little East Conference every single time except one in my last 7 years. So it's an enormous amount of success that you experience for really, quite frankly, understaffed. When we compare ourselves to when we play against Bowdoin, remember they have their basketball team, has 2 full-time assistant coaches. We have none. Right? So same thing with baseball. So what happens is they get to recruit, they get to pull in more people, they get to build those relationships early. And so we have to compete with basically one coach and a part-time assistant coach. Those are difficult things to compete with when you think about our ability to do that. And yet we still are competitive with them. And we beat Bowdoin last year. So town-gown relations, sorry, I had to throw that in. The town-gown relationships between Gorham and our athletic is exceptional. And Al will talk about this in more depth, but literally hundreds of people from the Gorham area, as Chair Gardner knows, come and work out with us every morning. They come to our games, even though they don't have children with us. That relationship is very strong. And in addition, our community service usually begins in Gorham in terms of our athletes coming back to the community and participating with the community. And then finally, we believe that academics, athletics in the community are really an exceptionally winning formula. Looking at our vision, as you can see, we have a really inspiring, I think, athletic vision, which really says we want to regularly challenge for conference honors. We want to be competitive. We want to be at the highest possible level of Division III performance. We want to earn even national recognition, which we do. And we want to also deliver exceptional student athlete experience that provides participants with all of the skills, not just in athletics, but academically. And our mission, again, opportunities for student athletes to realize their full potential, and our values that everyone participating in intercollegiate sports in this at USM, that our athletic department will function with the utmost integrity and adherence to institutional conferences. And I can tell you that in 7 years, I never got a single complaint about the ethics and behavior of a coach. It tells you just the kind of integrity that Al brings to this program. And with that, I'm going to ask Al Bean to please join us and present the next few slides.
Which one? This one, all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to be here with you today and talk a little bit about our program. And oops, see, I've messed it up already. I'm not normally a bragger, but I've been asked to do that a little bit today, so I'll see what I can do for you. I want to give you a quick overview of what our program is like initially. We have 22 sports, 11 for men, 11 for women. We have about 450 distinct student athletes in those sports, and about 40% of them are from out of state on an annual basis. We have a strong pull in terms of recruiting from out of state and also some international, including Canadian students. We bring in about 125 to 130 new athletes each year. And our first year retention over the last 25 years is 79.3. And our overall persistence is 83.2. Graduation rate is 45% during that same time. And one of the things we're really proud of, we have brought our overall GPA to 3.24 for all students. When I first came in here as athletic director, one of the things that really concerned me was the GPA and the performance level academically. We were hovering around 2.5. We started a scholar athlete program, and I will tell you this, at that time, we had 200 athletes. And the first year, we had 19 of 200 over 3.0, which was pretty horrible in my opinion. We now have about 250 on an annual basis rather than 19, and we have about 450 athletes. So that number has gone up dramatically. And when you see 19 hockey players at an event, all wearing their medallions in a group, being very proud of that achievement, it's something really nice to see. 18 of our 22 teams are above 3.0. Our goal is to have all 22 of them be there. And along the way here academically, we've had multiple co-sider academic All-Americans. We had 3 last year. Scholar All-Americans, which comes in wrestling. This last week, we had our first Arthur Ashe Sports Scholar, which was very impressive. Young man named Jaquan Grant from Connecticut won that. And we've had 2 wrestlers win the Elite 89, Elite 90 as the best student in the country who was competing at the national championship. So they are getting it done in the classroom, and we're very, very proud of that. Our recruiting work is really almost everything we do, like anybody has done, in a partnership with others. We have a strong relationship with admissions. We have a liaison that we work with, that we talk back and forth with. And one of the most critical things is we have faculty in many areas that when we have a student on campus who's interested in a major, and I see Carlos Luck back here from the engineering department, we call people and ask them if they would meet with this student, sit down and talk with them about their major. And when we do, we have a very good chance of convincing that student to come. The other thing I would say that's really changed dramatically during Glenn's time, scholarships have increased dramatically at USM. I go back far enough to when we didn't even stack aid. So if you had need, you didn't get scholarship. Now you get need and scholarship, and the amounts have gone up. So the quality of those students in our program, and I'm sure across the institution, has increased dramatically.
We give no scholarships for athletics.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah. I think one of the things, we've approached this as a learning community. And the second part of that to me is really critical, the community piece. And I'm going to tell you that in the last 7 years with Glenn, he's played a key role in that community building. He's attended more games in his 7 years than all the other presidents I've worked with in my tenure. Now, he might not be there for the entire game or whatever, but he makes appearances and he comes and he roots on the teams. We would also have these seasonal gatherings, so we'd invite all fall athletes and their coaches. And Glenn would go around and introduce himself and talk to every single athlete in that room and make that time to talk with them. And that certainly made them feel welcome and made them feel supportive. So I thank you very much for that. We have a learning center intentionally built into our office area. So there are 13 offices with a learning center in the middle. And we require first-year athletes to be in there 4 hours a week to study. Now, I've had both athletes and staff say, this is not the greatest learning environment. And they're right, it isn't. But it gets them going in the right direction. And the one thing I can tell you that's very powerful is every day for some of us to go and call one of those first-year students by their first name and have a conversation with them and make them feel welcome, so that when they have issues, when they have questions and problems, they'll walk in our doors and they'll talk with us about them. So that community is being built from day one within that learning center. And it's all about feeling at home and feeling comfortable about what you're doing. We have a partnership with the Learning Commons, one-on-one meetings with coaches, progress checks every semester, and our faculty are very good about getting those back to us. And our compliance director and our FAR give us real quality oversight on what's going on. A couple of things that have really been positive for us: Student Athlete Advisory Committee, which has been in place with us for a long, long time. They've won 15 awards for their work nationally for community service. They've done a tremendous job, and they won first place the first year it was offered for continued work with Special Olympics. They were the outstanding student organization several times. And then in response to a lot of what's going on, and we're talking about DEI a lot, we started what we call SADI, Student Athlete Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. We have about 20 to 25 students who meet with us every 2 weeks, who are there to help us affect positive change and improve the situation for our diverse population of student athletes. We are all trying to catch up in this area, there's no question. Our profile of athletes has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. We're far more diverse. We need to keep learning, and we need to keep supporting and working with that group. We have initiatives with our conference and with IDELA, and we've started a DEI advisory board with, honestly, people from Maine to Malaysia on it, that involves experts in the field, alumni who are diverse, and we're getting input from them and working closely with them. I think one of the things I always like to say, because it's always thrown out there about athletics sometimes, we are not an island. We are not a silo. We are purposely not one. We work very closely with all kinds of departments across the university. We have a great collaboration around sports medicine that includes our Student Health and Counseling Center. It also includes Maine Medical Center, team doctor. We've had the benefit of having a licensed sports psychologist with us one morning and one afternoon a week for 7 years, and open walk-in for students to go in and talk with that person. It's been extraordinary to have that resource with us. And she unfortunately is having her own health problems right now, and we're going to lose her, but I'm hopeful we can do something else. We work with all of the healthcare affiliates, and then again, learning assistants. Jean Paquette is here. We have a great relationship we've built with the Career Hub. Lots of programming, bringing in alumni, bringing in employers, and helping our people prepare. And alumni advising, it goes on. So I will say, and I probably should be moving this thing, huh, Glenn, somewhere? There's a little profile of the GPA, how it's gone up over the years. And we do want to win. We are pretty competitive folks. There's no question about it. As Glenn alluded, we've won a couple national championships in baseball. We've been in the World Series 8 times, the NCAA is 25. Women's basketball, which is actually down right now, we won 20 games or more for 30 consecutive years. The only 2 teams at that time were the North Carolina men and the Tennessee women that had done that. That was an extraordinary run of success for that program. We obviously hope we can get back on track with that. Women's track, as Glenn said, has won 20 of 22 Little East Conference championships indoors and 19 of 22 outdoors. The men have won 14 indoor and 9 outdoor. And we've sent softball, tennis, golf, wrestling, lots of different teams, field hockey to national tournaments in the last few years. And we've had 5 people win 8 national championships in individual sports from track, wrestling. Jamie Roginski won 3. This year, Ben Drummond won the national championship in the pole vault. And last year, Sofia Sluvinsky, who's a transfer from Bowdoin, I will say, is a 4.0 student and won the national championship in the javelin. So I'm going to give a lot of credit to our staff members. They work extremely hard. They live the service promise that was created of student focused every day. They're incredibly committed, and we've had some longevity, and that makes a difference, it really does. And then I will say, Town of Gorham, why this is important to us. We are really of the town of Gorham. We share facilities. We use their tennis courts and their outdoor track because we don't have that. They use our indoor track. They use our ice arena. We try to do as much as we can without charging each other money so that we can help each other out. We have agreements around emergency response, which we've had to use in both directions. And that's very important. We do things with them like we host their Gorham Marketplace event. We have a Halloween party for their kids every year. New Year's Gorham, Skate with the Huskies, Gorham Night, where we really get together and celebrate the partnership with them. Another slide somewhere. That's our staff. See if you can commit that to memory in the next 10 seconds. That would be good.
Yeah, that's great.
And one of the things with Gorham that's become pretty important is the early college courses that we offer. And I'd like to have Glenn speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Thank you, Al. Our commitment to early college courses, as you know, has grown tremendously over the last few years. But I just also want to emphasize that our model partner is Gorham High School. The students now, we've developed a series of courses and pathways for students in certain STEM programs and the liberal arts that allows them to accomplish almost 30 credits before they even come. And last year, almost 40 students from Gorham High School would have been eligible if they chose to come into the UMaine system. Not everyone did, but they would have been eligible to really exempt their entire freshman year. So that partnership is very deep. It's stronger even than we have with other schools because the flexibility that we're able to have with students being able to run up to the hill, have courses, take the courses, get back to their classes on time at Gorham High School, which is only about a quarter to half a mile away. So the programs there have been extremely strong. Many of them are also come and watch our athletics. So the bond between those two really, really help. I also just want to say, we have a number of shared agreements with the town of Gorham specifically that go beyond just athletics. I look at the police report every day here, and I would say the largest number of police incident reports are us helping them, the town of Gorham, do something that they needed assistance on. So that partnership is really quite strong. And it's cemented, I think, most dramatically by our athletic department. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. We must be running out of time. I'm just going to mention a couple of other things. Facilities are always an issue. We've made some very good progress. We still have some things going on right now. We are replacing our turf after 12 years, and we're getting some new fitness equipment. Thanks for approving all of that because we really need it. We have some other things that certainly need to be done to help us compete in recruiting and retention of students. We have a coaching minor. A lot of our coaches coach through the College of Ed, 18 credit minor in coaching. And the provost will tell you that I've been bugging her for a while about a major in coaching. And some people laugh at that. But I say we would never put a teacher in a classroom without preparing them. And we do it every day with coaches. We have people that graduate and they're a head coach of a high school team 3 months later, and they have no idea how to coach a team. And as you know, with what's going on with travel and club and AAU and all of that, people are making an awful lot of money off the backs of parents, promising a lot, and some of those organizations are great, and some of those coaches are, and a lot of them aren't. And I think we have a ground floor opportunity to help better prepare people to coach, to understand what it is to deal with a young person, treat them appropriately, and understand the body, the mind, and the sport. And I really hope that we can look at that seriously. There are people who are going to do it. They're doing it at the graduate level. And I hope we can take a look at it. So that's it. I'll end it there, but I'd be happy to try to answer anything if anybody has any questions. You're probably all pretty anxious to get out of here, would be my guess.
Thank you. Very good summary and outstanding program. Yes, trustee.
Thank you for your excellent work, the excellent program that you run. I heard you mention that you have 11 programs for men and 11 programs for women. I'm just curious what the total budget is for your women's athletic programs and what your total budget is for your athletic programs.
That's budgets are difficult to iron out. We have a budget, I think, of about 2.8 million. And that includes fringe benefits. It includes about 600,000 of which we have to raise to make it to 2.8. It includes all of our salaries. And then when we get down to it at the end, we have a pretty small budget for operations, to be honest with you. Men and women's budgets are almost identical across the board. There's a few minor differences. If you looked at our EADA report, there'd be a couple things that are slightly higher for the men and a couple things that are slightly higher for the women. You wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference, quite honestly, in what's there. Baseball is a little more than softball because the roster size is a little higher. But there's not much of a difference in there. I think that the real concerns for us in administration of athletics, and Alec Borges is in the room and we've been talking, I mean, travel is going out of sight. Bus companies are going through the roof. Officials' costs are going up consistently, and you can't get them anymore. People are leaving. Not enough new people are going in. There's constant unfunded mandates from the NCAA and other organizations. So we're reacting a lot to things that we have no control over. I know our new bus bid it's over $5 a mile for a bus. That's the same for all of us in the system. And the bus companies got killed during COVID. Their trips were gone for sports, and most of they lived off their casino trips and that sort of stuff. Most of that was shut down. So they're all trying to make it up. But I don't know if that gives you enough, but it's pretty even, and we get by and we do some creative things to try to make it work. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? It's a great presentation.
Thank you.
It continues to highlight to me how important athletics are to the whole campus community and the well-being of our students, and what it can do for leadership skills, success in leading people and teams, and all the things you need when you step out of the college and start and work in the real world. They're important, and it's great to raise it up and hear about how you're doing and what you need, and I'm sure the trustees will take it and think about it, and it's an important part of the program. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We're nearly at the end. I want to bring up one thing that's not on the agenda. I'd like to just briefly address the matter of University of Maine Augusta president. In the recent days, that's had a lot of press. There's been a lot on that for a variety of reasons, and all of them important reasons. And I just want to bring to the attention, while we've been here meeting today, we have released a public statement this afternoon that is confirming that Dr. Michael Liberty will voluntarily withdraw his contract to be the next president at the University of Maine Augusta. The current interim president, Joe Sakis, has agreed to remain at University of Maine, Augusta as the president through next June. So it gives us a full year. Thank you, Joe, very much for that. And there'll be a launching of a new presidential search this fall. So that gets us back in the cycle for the upcoming search for academics. And a lot of important things come out of this. I don't want to diminish all the learnings that have gone on. I would say that there are 2 announcements that came out. I'd recommend that everybody gets a chance to go take a look at those. I want to make sure that you all understand that we as the board takes this very seriously. We know that there are things that were done that we could have done differently or better, and we will in the future. And everybody has learned from this, but we are in a place to move forward, and that's what we got to look at, is moving forward and make sure that Augusta has the right leadership. And we do with Joe there. Thank you, Joe, again. And we look forward to the upcoming year on that. So please go see the 2 announcements that have come out. They got more detail in it. And appreciate your interest and all the folks that are not here that have given some comment on it. Appreciate that too. Thank you. Now we'll adjourn for today. We're going to have a dinner for the board over in, I think it's in Emerson Hall, over in Emerson Center. And Glenn, do you have a?
What the traffic has got a little bit blocked there, so you're going to have to go out to Bedford Street and then up up the hill towards Aberson. When you come in the door on that first door, the reception will be upstairs. The dinner will be downstairs.
Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow. And see you at 10.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, basketball.
Yep.